Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Here on Earth. Good afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on when you're watching or listening. This is, in fact, Peter Robbins, your host of Meanwhile Here on Earth, back after a 5-week hiatus, whether you noticed it or not. All the shows that you've been watching or listening to have been pre-recorded. But I am back here in the flesh once again. I spent the first half of last month in England, ostensibly to speak at a conference in the great city of Hull. But before that, to return to Suffolk, England, site of the famous Rendlesham Forest incident, where I will always return, have some of the best friends I have in the world there, and then up to Lincolnshire, England to visit more friends, traveling with my sister Anne, which was great fun, and returning to London, dinner at a wonderful Indian restaurant with a dear friend of mine, Gulrik Khan, and then a 2-day turnaround and off to the Bahamas with my oldest best friend, his wife and daughter, for some downtime, and also to document something that concerned us very much. In 2019, a Category 5 hurricane hit the island of, well, it hit the Bahamas, but it stalled over Abaco Island and generated 185-mile-an-hour winds. And we had learned that a good deal of the structures there had been destroyed. We're concerned about friends there. It's a place I visited before. And spent a good part of 2 weeks documenting what is still horrific damage, unlike anything I've ever seen in person, as though a war had been fought there. And in fact, one had, against nature. Not that there was any fighting to be done. I can only say some of the images in my mind are still very fresh of the house that my friend's family used to live in. The entire second floor swept away in a moment as a tidal surge of 35 feet came across the island, and in the course destroyed or badly damaged 90% plus of every building on the island. Everybody that we knew they were able to chase down was well and had survived it. Unfortunately, their federal government in Nassau has done little to prioritize helping these folks out. So they're getting along the best they can. And at the same time, we had a bit of a holiday. So the ironies of life pile up, good and bad together. And it's great to be back. And it's great to have this very special guest tonight who will be joining us for the next 2 hours. My old friend and colleague Don Ecker is a writer, researcher, and commentator who lives in the Los Angeles area. For 20 years, he served as the director of research and media liaison for UFO magazine. It is internationally renowned for his investigations into the UFO phenomena. Don is a former law enforcement officer and criminal investigator with over 10 years' experience. He was one of a small handful of individuals back in the 80s who helped bring legitimacy to a field that was then suffering from being painted as a fringe group. And that, thankfully, is beginning to change now. Don was one of the pioneers of bringing that about. He's written numerous articles for the former definitive American UFO publication, UFO Magazine, as well as articles for other publications, both here and abroad. They include in the United Kingdom, the Fortean Times, Omni here in America, the CompuServe system, and the Paranet computer database. Ecker became interested in the UFO question in 1966 when, along with several other friends, he was a UFO witness to something, quote, unlike anything I had ever seen before, and realizing then that there was much more to this than the authorities were letting on, end quote. After graduating from high school in 1968, Ecker attended college for 1 year, then enlisted in the United States Army. He was selected for the elite American Security Agency, Army Security Agency, where he volunteered for special operations. He served in Southeast Asia for 26 months, was wounded twice, decorated, then returned to the United States. He returned to college for another year, then applied to his hometown police department, where he was accepted, trained, and became an officer. In 1986, while a member of his department's SWAT team, Ecker was seriously wounded, which led to his retirement. While recuperating, he started to research and write about the UFO mystery. As a criminal investigator, in 1982, he had been leading an investigation into several cattle mutilations, which, remember, was still fairly new territory at the time. He later discovered were somehow connected with the university, with the mystery, and presented a paper on this research at the 1989 International UFO Symposium that's sponsored by MUFON in Las Vegas that year. Ecker has appeared on numerous times on the Larry King live show on CNN, and was utilized repeatedly as an expert communicator and technical advisor by NBC's Hard Copy, Fox's A Current Affair, and more recently was the technical advisor and on-screen expert for the Fox television series Sightings and Encounters. He has also appeared on CNBC's Talk America and the Sci-Fi Channel's Anti-Gravity Room and Discovery Channel's Cyber Life. And during Roswell's 50th anniversary, and we're coming up to the 75th one right now, he was interviewed on Entertainment Tonight and Extra. Ecker was a featured speaker at Nevada's dedication of the extraterrestrial highway during the premiere of Independence Day, the summer blockbuster of 1996, and hosted his own weekly national radio talk show, UFOs Tonight, on Cable Radio Network for 5 years. More recently, he hosted Strange Days 5 nights a week on the Liberty Works radio network. And in 2004, with his good friend Dwight Schultz, began a new national radio program called Dark Matters, which ran on this network for years. Ecker has been a guest on well over 1,000 radio talk show programs around this country. Don's important historical knowledge to the study brings important historical knowledge to the study of the phenomena. As he has stated, quote, "The case for a conspiracy of silence is there for all to see. All one has to do is look to the history of the U.S. government and UFOs. The government, and more specifically the U.S. military, has always been aware of this mystery and the potential danger and promise it might represent. We as citizens have a right to know what is occurring and what, if anything, our government is doing about this enigma." Ecker is true to his word and ideas. In 1991, he broke one of the biggest UFO stories of the year, investigating the 1988 Soviet unmanned probe to Mars, Phobos 1 and Phobos 2. Ecker uncovered an amazing story of the Phobos 2's apparent encounter with the huge unknown and the probe's ultimate disappearance, an incredibly important case that you should be aware of. He was able to secure a photograph of the unknown from the Soviet Glavskomost, and I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, space agency. He was asked to appear on NBC's Hard Copy and live on CNN's Larry King to talk about the incident, where he revealed the photograph publicly for the first time. In 1992, Ecker once again broke one of the biggest UFO stories of the year, this one again on the program Hard Copy, then followed up again on Larry King Live. He brought to public attention this time the amazing story of the STS-48, the Discovery shuttle mission photographing UFO enigmas in Earth orbit, and the drastic maneuvers the unknowns took. Then something appeared to shoot at them. Ecker is a former MUFON state section director and investigator. He was also resident UFO book reviewer for UFO Magazine, where he displayed a critical and insightful in-depth analysis of various new works in the UFO field. He was a technical advisor for Larry King Live, for Hard Copy, as well as for a dozen other shows, including Fox's A Current Affair, Sightings, Oprah Winfrey, Encounters, and Extra, in connection with Independence Day, that great film. Ecker conducted public relations and personal appearances in behest of Paramount's motion picture release of Fire in the Sky. And in January of 1995, the Disney company in Orlando asked Ecker to set up an international 2-week program with top UFO researchers in the world to introduce the new alien attraction. It was a hit. 20th Century Fox's summer blockbuster, again Independence Day, asked Ecker to sit on a panel being held in connection with the opening of the renamed Highway 375 to the extraterrestrial highway that straddles Nevada's legendary Area 51, along with stars from the film. He completed a novel called Past Sins that is published by Gateway Publishing and is currently under consideration by a major production house for movie or television series. And with that, I will take a deep breath and say, Don Ecker, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Well, Peter, thank you so much. And good heaven, I'd love to meet the guy we were just talking about.
I know. You're around long enough and you do enough stuff, and all of a sudden your resume looks like a fantasy of somebody wishing that they were a legendary UFO researcher.
Well, during the program tonight, one thing that I would love to hit a little bit later is the Disney situation that you just mentioned, because that is, well, let's just say there's a lot of, and let me use a cop phrase, a lot of hinky with that, okay? A whole lot of hinky.
I have been fascinated by that story since it happened too. And the accompanying documentary, which kind of blew my mind when it was shown in very limited release, opening with Disney CEO.
One time it aired in the afternoon, one time, okay? No promo about it at all.
No.
It was just suddenly, hey, let's play this. And nobody saw it. And later, it aired one more time after midnight, okay? And it disappeared. Now, granted, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, that
we do need to discuss this. And I was one of the people who missed it both times, but who not long after the second time saw a VHS copy of it. And there's Michael Eisner.
Yes.
And all I could think was, good God, if Disney is taking this approach, and your homework, my friends, is to seek this out on YouTube and watch it, because it will blow your mind. I genuinely thought for a brief period of time that it was all about to come undone. It is a brilliant, shockingly well done, well produced, highly informed documentary that we will return to as we move forward in the program. But let's begin at the beginning, Don. Where were you born?
Originally, I come from the East Coast. I live in California, but I was born and raised in central western Pennsylvania, city of Altoona, which, as a matter of fact, during the Second World War, and you and I were briefly discussing that earlier, it was a primary target for the Germans, the Nazis, had they have had the technology to get here, because of the railroad that goes through there, which took God only knows how many tons of military equipment from the East Coast out to the West Coast and vice versa.
Yeah.
It was a relatively, at the time I grew up, a relatively small city, maybe 50, 60,000. But I played football in high school then, and it had a pretty hot football team at the time. And you mentioned my seeing the phenomenon in 1966.
Hold that thought for a moment, because I want to know some earlier stuff. Tell us first a little bit about your folks.
Well, my father was from just right outside of Altoona, a small borough of Hollidaysburg. My mom was born and raised, in Altoona. My family on that side, my mother, goes back to pre-Revolutionary War times. I think it's either 4 or 5, I'm not sure which, great-grandfathers ago, came over to the United States from Ireland as an indentured servant.
Oh, my gosh.
And he was indentured to a gunmaker, a gunsmith out of Lancaster County.
Gosh.
And later on, his line and subsequently his children who followed in his footsteps, their line of Pennsylvania rifles were legendary for their accuracy. Later on, we had family from that aspect, fought in the Revolution, the War of 1812. We even had one that went down to Texas during the Texas Revolution.
Wow.
And died of, he wasn't killed in combat, but he died of a disease. I forget now exactly what it was. But then I had 3 great uncles that fought during the Civil War for the Union.
Good Lord.
Okay. At places like Gettysburg, Shiloh. I mean, we're talking about some really big battles. My granddad, my mother's father, was born in 1897. When the First World War began, he enlisted in the United States Navy. Later on, during the Second World War, he became a combat engineer officer that served in Burma, India, and China.
Wow.
Okay, my dad came from a kind of a large family, 5 sisters, 1 brother. His brother, who was the eldest, went into the military in the late 1930s. He got sent to the Kasserine Pass in North Africa, was badly wounded there. My dad, who had lied about his age in September of 41, was in the Pennsylvania State Guard when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Grandma went down, ratted him out. They threw him out because he was too young. And he ended up going into the Merchant Marine. He was on 2 vessels during the war that were sunk.
Good Lord.
Yeah, but he made it. One was, by the way, in Murmansk up in Russia. Later on, he told me that they fished him out of the water. How he didn't die is a mystery. But he said he spent 12 weeks in a Russian field hospital.
Wow.
And some days they would remember to come in and stoke the stove. Other days they didn't. And usually he ate several times a week. So, I mean, really some crazy stuff. But when he hit 18, he went into the Army. And I had mentioned to you that he was one of the liberators of the concentration camp at Dachau. So, the military was kind of always in my family. Yeah. He was called back, by the way, to the Korean War, and Mom was not happy about that. But, those were the things you dealt with at the time.
Don, growing up as a boy, for a lot of us that were the sons of veterans of World War II, we played cowboys and Indians, but we played war. We played soldiers. Was this, the military tradition, even as play, part of your early childhood?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
And once, in elementary school, we all kind of master reading at a different point, beyond the see Dick and Jane run level. And the world of reading opens up to us. Were you much of a reader?
Huge reader. As a matter of fact, I used to get in trouble with my parents because I was always grabbing either my grandfather or my father's adult paperback books and sneaking out. And, I'm talking about 8, 9, 10 years old. And I would read those until I got caught. As a matter of fact, that's where, believe it or not, Peter, I discovered James Bond. My grandfather was an Ian Fleming fan. And I'll never forget, he had a couple of Bond books there, and I had no idea what they were.
They were great fun. I read a number as a kid and just thought, I understood that they were not wholly serious and a bit of a caricature, but they were great fun, and now in many ways ridiculously politically incorrect, but who cared?
Well, I got to say that I think one of the greatest stories that Fleming did, and he did some pretty good ones.
He did. Well, he worked in intelligence.
He was intelligence, yeah. He was British Naval Intelligence.
He knew his business, yes.
From Russia with Love.
Believe it or not, I read it this winter. I went through a spate of going through, novels about spycraft and that kind of thing. Yet once again, it works in cycles. And I forgot what a great, compelling story it was and what a great storyteller he is. And it was just a reminder again, with a zillion actors now that have played Bond, nobody had it down, I think, the way that Fleming wanted that character to shape up if he ever
I thought Connery did.
There you go. And that film opposite Robert Shaw playing.
Oh, my God.
And recently rewatching him again in his wonderful performance in Jaws. What a great actor he was. We lost him too early, but he was a scary son of a bitch and ultimate killing machine.
Let me tell you what, that fight scene on the Orient Express was one of the greatest fight scenes I think I've ever witnessed in cinema.
No special effects, just
no. And Connery was a big guy. He had been a bodybuilder, a weightlifter.
He was a miner. I mean, that guy came from a very physical background. I think the last
and a coffin polisher at one point. Yeah. I don't know if you knew that.
Now, there's a trade for you. Always worked there. Whew.
But Shaw was just a chilling villain.
Yeah. And again, reading the book, and I know we're digressing here, but that's part of what the show is all about. It left an impression on me that I'm a pretty snooty reader. I know you are too, and often, the movie holds up nothing to the book. But in the case of From Russia with Love, good job on both counts.
Well, that was, in my opinion, and this is strictly my opinion, that was when the Bond franchise was still fairly pure. And what I mean by that, later, with all the goofy gadgets and stuff that they insisted on shoving into those films, Goldfinger was not quite as bad, but later on, I just got disgusted. And Roger Moore, got to the point I could not watch Bond anymore with him. And not until Timothy Dalton, who only did 2 films.
Yeah.
And then Pierce Brosnan, who did, I believe, 4. And finally, Daniel
Craig.
Yeah. Okay.
Very
was
thoughtful.
the only guy that I thought measured up to Sean Connery. But that's me. So
yeah. What other kinds of reading were you doing back in the day?
History.
No
by
by
the ton. Okay.
Yeah.
My father was a history geek. And he had, and when I was in college, that was my major. Okay.
Yeah, I thought so.
When I came back from the Army, I went back to school. But when I was a kid growing up, he had a series of military historical books going back literally to the ancient Egyptians, the first dynasty, King Scorpion, okay, which is today what we call the guy, Menes, King Scorpion. But, the first recorded battles in human history that we know about. Now, of course, there was also the Sumerian civilization, which at that time often got left out.
You bet.
All right. But no, that was and still is my love.
You grew up in a way I would have to categorize as kind of all American. It's now almost nostalgic to look back. Well, it is nostalgic to look back on that time. Things seem clearer. What we wanted to believe about our nation, as opposed to the incredibly complex evolution of the political matrix here. It was a time when you could believe more fully in the ideals of the country.
Well, all of that changed November 22nd, 1963.
Well,
that was the door.
I will always categorize that as to personalize it, one of the worst days of my young life. And I know countless other Americans who are our contemporaries likely feel the same way. It was, in a way, the perfect coup. One person taken out, and then several others, and then dozens of others, and everything changed forever and never for the better. Say what one can or what one will about John Kennedy's peccadillos. He inspired so many of us to service, to idealism, to become part of something bigger than ourselves. And in a second, it was all lost.
Do you want to hear a spooky story?
Absolutely.
In April of 1964, my father, who stayed in the military reserves, after Korea, he had been a master sergeant, became a warrant officer in 1956. And I don't know if you know what a warrant officer is.
Would you explain that to us?
Yeah, it's kind of halfway. They're an officer, all right, but they're a technical specialist, all right? And it's kind of weird. There are 4 grades of warrant officer, 1, 2, 3, and 4. A warrant officer 4 is God Almighty on earth, all right? But technically, they are under a second lieutenant who is, a fresh face, for the most part, baby face kid that got commissioned after college or coming out of one of the military academies.
Yep.
Now, my dad was in ordnance.
Oh boy!
And in '64, he was on active duty, and a friend of ours, my mom, my little sister, myself, and some friends of ours that lived up the road from us said, "Hey, let's go down to Arlington Cemetery. Let's go down to Washington and see President Kennedy's gravesite.
Yeah.
And this was actually his first gravesite. They later moved him. All right. So we went down there, and solemn, Peter. It was so solemn.
Yeah.
And
this was only months after he was murdered.
Well, just several months after. He was murdered in November 63. This was April 64.
There you go.
And there was a big crowd of people off to the one side. They were having, some ceremony or something. So my friend, the guy there, my friend Frank or Frankie, and I saw that and said, let's go over and see what's going on. We walked over, and it was maybe 150, 200 yards away. And there was a service or a ceremony being held for a freedom rider that had been murdered, Wiley Post. I'll never forget that. And as we walked over, lo and behold, I could not believe my eyes. Dr. Martin Luther King was there, and shit. Robert Kennedy, both of them together. Wow. And it was like, my jaw was down around my knees.
Oh my God.
And of course that, when you're a kid, I was not quite 14 years old then.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God. Yeah. Well, of course.
I just got the chills when you said that.
4 years later, in April, Martin Luther King was murdered. Yeah. And a couple of months after that, on my high school prom night.
Oh my God.
Bobby Kennedy was murdered.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter, what are the odds? What are the odds of that? Yeah, that has stuck with me my entire life.
I think these confluences of events help make us who we are. And I know some people say everything happens, with a purpose. I disagree. I think there are coincidences. I think there's also something called predestination. And, take your choice based on the odds. As you progressed through high school, again, you played football. You were a history geek.
And I was in the high school choir.
Me too. I was the president of our high school chorus, and I will always remain very proud of that. Major singer back in the day. Your prom night, what the hell was that like, to digress again?
It's funny. I can remember my uncle, my mom's younger sister's husband. And I loved that man. I mean, we were close. I loved that man. I'll never forget sitting out. Now, our family, my grandfather back in the 50s had purchased a fairly sizable piece of property with the intent at the time of having a place where he and grandma would build their house. My mom and dad on another lot built their house. My aunt and uncle, my mom's sister and husband, built their house.
Wow.
And my mom's brother,
like a family compound.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. And we were sitting out at one of the picnic tables. We had picnic tables out there. This is shortly after Martin Luther King was murdered. And I can remember talking to Uncle Mac about that. And I said, my God, they just murdered, or whoever they are, murdered President Kennedy, a little over 4 years ago. And now this, of course, had no way of knowing what was in the offing.
Yep.
And 68, I don't know what year you graduated, Peter, But 68 was a chaotic year.
It was
My
one of the most
cousin,
loaded years in American history for sure.
my cousin at that time, this was, of course, before I went into the service.
Yeah.
My cousin was already over there in the Marine Corps and went through the Tet Offensive, the beginning of the Tet Offensive. And that was still playing in the news.
Yeah.
I mean, the aftermath, it was a terrible time. And then Martin Luther King was murdered. Then the rioting throughout the country and the burning of cities began.
Yeah.
All right. Then Robert Kennedy was murdered. I believe it was the 11th of June.
June coming up.
Yeah. And then that summer, okay, now Bobby Kennedy, a lot of people today, I mean, this is over 50 years ago, will not know if they haven't studied the history of it, was the leading contender for the Democratic presidential nomination.
It looked like it was going to be him. And this is a very complex man who changed over the years and became a better man and a better public servant, as far as I'm concerned, in the crucible of the fire of the murders of his brother, of King, of the madness of that summer. Continue.
Well, then the Republican Party was Richard Nixon was fighting for the nomination.
You bet.
They had their convention in Miami. They had riots there. I mean, Peter, that whole year, well, you look at it in hindsight, it was terrifying. It was a terrifying year.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, Don. Like you, I was deeply affected by the murder of Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, who I felt really had a potential of turning the country around.
Well, and Kennedy wanted to get us out of Vietnam.
He did, and I think for the right reasons. And my best friend and I decided we should see democracy in action. And we drove from Maine, where we were camping out, in 24 hours to Chicago. And we were in Grant Park that night at a very peaceful demonstration when we observed, as the sun was setting, a line. You could see them with the city lights in the background. It's a huge car dealership with a lot of lights. This line of police officers.
Well, I forgot the Chicago riots.
Yeah, and it was, and I'm here to tell you, it was a police riot. We were instructed by the leaders of the demonstration that we should in no way resist if there was, an attempt to subdue us by the police. But in that moment, we began to hear a sound that you never want to hear, which is, my first take was, my God, they're firing live ammunition at us. And then the tear gas canisters started to land. And within moments, people panicked and started to run. And from then on, it's a series of montages for me.
Yeah.
And I ended up with several hundred other people sleeping in a common room on gym mats in a church that night. Realized at midnight it was my birthday. And the vehicle that we drove there, a Volkswagen bus, was badly damaged. My friend was hospitalized. Anyway, we didn't get to see democracy in action, but it was just underscoring.
We saw a police riot in action.
We did. And
that's exactly what it was, a police riot.
It was. And Mayor Daley, your classic corrupt politician, bless his heart, and good old Chicago. And one of the ironies there is good buddies with Joe Kennedy, Bobby and John's father, back in the Prohibition days. They made a lot of money together. Be that as it may, 1968 progressed, and at a certain point, in a way, it almost sounds like predestiny. Was there ever a part of you that felt you weren't going to serve in the military, like so many of the men in your family before you, but you enlisted? Talk about what happened then.
Well, I went off to college in fall of 1968.
Mm.
I went to a state teachers college because I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a history instructor. The name of the college, it was below Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was California State Teachers College in California, Pennsylvania. Now, really?
Oh, you can't make this shit up.
No. How did it get that name? Well, back during the California Gold Rush, and this is a little historical fact, people from all across the world, when the word got out that a huge gold strike was made in California.
Sutter's Mill.
Exactly. People were flooding to get to California.
Yeah.
This was off the Monongahela River. And back in those days, one of the means of transportation were riverboats.
Yeah. Ah.
Okay, and barges.
Yeah.
Okay. If you ever saw the old Walt Disney, Davy Crockett series with Mike Fink, the riverboat guy, well, that's okay.
I haven't thought of that in years. Many years.
Well, here were, where these people were landing.
Yeah.
And somebody had the bright idea, well, hey, let's call this California. And that's how it got its name.
I love it.
Now, I went to college there, and first year, and I got into it with one of my professors. As a matter of fact, a history professor. And it was, boy, is this going to hit a button. It was over the Second Amendment.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. And he was trying to tell everybody that and I mean, this is, I can't make this shit up, that it was not an absolute thing, the Second Amendment, and it never meant for an individual single person to have the right to own and have firearms. Well, Peter, I'm sorry, but
No
I would have
apology
gone.
necessary.
I'm sorry?
No apologies necessary here.
Yeah, I told him he was wrong. And not only was he wrong, he must not have ever read the damn Second Amendment. Well, you don't you don't do that with your history professor, not if you want to graduate. So at the end of that term, quite honestly, I said, to hell with this. And I'm going to do what I wanted to do originally, okay, which was go into the service and have them pay for my education. Right. Now, my dad, all right, was adamant against me going, and we clashed. Now, of course, he and I clashed a lot most of my life. But we clashed about that. And I told him, I said, I'm going in the service, okay, whether you like it or not. Now, originally.
May I ask why, coming from his own military background, he disagreed with you on that?
He'd been wounded. Okay, he didn't want to see that happen to me, I guess.
Of course. You're his son. He loves you.
So originally I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, and that's what I originally wanted to do. I wanted to go to Fort Rucker. I wanted to learn to fly choppers. But when I went in there, I had, from what I was told, extremely high academic scores. And one day, this guy, military guy, came by, and he said, I forget his rank. He was Sergeant First Class, somebody, okay, from the Army Security Agency. Now, I had never heard of that. What the hell's the Army Security Agency? well, it's a top secret thing and you're going to be doing a lot of, they picked me. Okay. I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
I was chosen. And then the lying bastard said I didn't have a choice. Okay. Which wasn't true. I did have a choice, but I was a young kid. I didn't know any better. So I ended up being selected for ASA. That's what it was called.
Yeah.
And, but then it got interesting. Okay. And we ended up doing in Vietnam a lot of interesting things, intelligence things.
This is what euphemistically is called special ops, special operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were not working for the DA, for the Department of the Army. You know who we were working for? And it was going all the way up the line to them. NSA, National Security Agency, NSA. That's who we worked for. Now, we wore the Army uniform. We were under Army regulations, blah, blah. But our command authority was NSA.
Which almost no American had ever even heard of at that point.
Exactly. And there were some squirrely things. Let me tell you that, Peter. Now, a lot of that, I to this day, I still can't talk about. Okay, because if I did, I would risk being prosecuted. Because, well, you know.
I do. And Don, what can you talk about? Here.
The day I got shot. Okay. I had been in a team on the demilitarized zone, the DMZ.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a place called A4, Alpha 4, which was a camp right directly off the Caveat River, which divided North and South Vietnam. Now, at that time, it was a 9-man team, Americans, 9 men. Okay. One of my responsibilities at that point, and I was doing a lot of stuff, but one of my responsibilities was to make sure that our bunker was secure. No local indigenous Vietnamese were allowed anywhere near it. Number one, we didn't know who the hell was VC anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Viet Cong, because the division that was up there at the time was, I'll just be real honest, it was a shit division. It was the 3rd ARVN Division. The 1st Division they had replaced. Now, the 1st ARVN Division was a good, tough bunch, but not these guys. They were kind of an ad hoc thing. And when the North Vietnamese attacked on 30th of March, they went through those guys like a dose of salts. Now, we were overrun, which you talk about something freaky. Man, that's something you never want to experience.
I can only imagine, and I use those
words
you can't. Literally.
You can't. You can't. But anyway, we were able to get out of there. We had called for an emergency evacuation. Now, a couple of the guys got banged up. Nobody was killed, thank God. Although 2 of our friends were just down the ways a little bit at another site called FS Sarge, Field Station Sarge. 2 of our guys were in there. When the Vietnamese attacked, they hit us with a massive artillery barrage and rockets. And at FS Sarge, apparently a 122 millimeter Soviet Russian rocket that the Russians had, given to the North Vietnamese, entered the bunker, went through the bunker,
Good Lord.
detonated. And when it did, they had fuel stored in there for the generators. it went up like a volcano. And as a matter of fact, their bodies they weren't even able to be recovered. They were incinerated. Yeah. So anyway, we get out of there. They took us down to Fubai. And that night, after we were down there and debriefed, first thing we did, Peter, I never got so drunk in my life. Okay. We stole a Jeep. Now we were so drunk, we thought we were going to drive home. So, and the major, that was assigned to Jeep came out, and he found us. And the guy, he was a decent human being. He said, "Boys, just go back, sleep it off. Things will look better in the morning." Oh, God, in the morning, I felt like hammered shit, all right? But that day, we had another site in Quang Tri, which was north of Wei. We were in Fubai, which was south of Wei. That was our parent unit. They needed some equipment, including some incendiary grenades for their equipment if the Vietnamese got that far, and they did. They ended up. And I volunteered like a dummy to take them up there. So I'll never forget the second lieutenant came out, and I had been at Quang Tri before, and I had buddies there, right? And I said, "Well, Lieutenant, I'll take that stuff up." And he issued me a case of these grenades, and the damn thing must have weighed 80 pounds. And I lugged it out to the helicopter. And as soon as I saw the chopper, I knew we were in trouble.
Oh, boy.
Because on the helicopter, normally helicopters were equipped with 30 caliber machine guns, M16.
On each side, you bet.
On each side. Not this one. This one had 50 caliber Browning heavy machine guns on it. 50s, okay? Now, I don't know if you know the difference, but a 30 caliber...
bigger.
Well, that's what they used on airplanes to shoot down other airplanes, okay? 50 calibers.
Just the weight alone.
They've sunk ships. They've shot down 10,000 airplanes. They've shot up tanks. I mean, that's how powerful the gun is. So we took off, and as we're flying north to go to Quang Tri, in the distance, I can see these flashes and flames. Of course, a helicopter is a pretty noisy machine. I couldn't hear anything yet. But when I got there, they came in, hovered off about 3 feet. I jumped in with this case of grenades. They immediately took off, and I'm trying to get into the bunker with these damn things while rounds are coming in. Well, for the next day and a half, that's all we had was this constant artillery barrage. Mm-hmm. So on Easter Sunday, this is why it's called the Easter Offensive, April the 2nd. The day before, the executive officer of that site had promoted me as the NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in charge of the reactionary platoon, because we figured we're going to get hit and we may need a group of guys to plug up any holes. Well, Ecker, guess what? You're the NCOIC, and they brought out a second lieutenant, a brown barb, fresh off the boat or airplane kid, to be the commanding officer. And I looked at this, Peter, and I could see we looked like lambs being led to the slaughter. God. Well, anyway, that night we got probed by sappers. Okay. And right in front of the installation had been an old French building of some kind that the South Vietnamese had turned into an orphanage. But now it was empty. Okay. And I was freaked because I could see infiltrators coming down there with an RTO, a radio transmitter operator, sending in corrections for the artillery strikes. Yeah. And across the highway from us, and it wasn't really a highway, but that's what it was called, Highway 1, was another military installation that serviced choppers coming in and out of there. You get fuel and whatever.
Don, I'm going to ask you to hold that for a moment at this absurd moment to have to stop.
Sure.
We have blown through our first hour. We are, meanwhile, here on Earth with Peter Robbins and Don Ecker, and we will be back in 3 or 4 minutes. Stick with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Scrolling all day, time can disappear. Wanna make it count? Why not volunteer?
Posting pics of your food, that takes up time. Time, you got time to binge all of season 9, though it got so bad.
Time, you got time. We're gonna grow back and be the same browse you had.
Just a few hours to keep families from harm. Help us end home fires with Sound the Alarm.
Volunteer for a day to install free smoke alarms in your community.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
And welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth with me, your host, Peter Robbins, and my special guest tonight, Don Ecker. Before we pick up where you left off, Don, I just want to say, especially for folks who are not that familiar with this show, yes, UFOs and the paranormal are our normal beat, and that is what almost all of our guests, not all, are here to discuss. But for me, personally, one of my mandates that I set up for this show is how did the people that we look up to, respect, know their work, agree with, disagree with in these fields become the people they are. And this accounting that Don is sharing with us, I consider a privilege. It transcends politics, whatever your leanings, left, right, progressive, conservative. We set aside at this time And also remember, this is a particularly important day, not just in American history, but world history, the anniversary of the invasion of Normandy, D-Day. And Don, as we continue, I want to thank you for your service to your country, to your community, in your law enforcement work, and ask you to pick up where you left off.
Sure. Right across from our base, and it was, incidentally, the designation was the 407th, okay, in Quandary, was I guess I personally had never gone over there, but they had some kind of a depot where choppers would come in, gas up, that type of thing. And they were also being shelled. And I can remember at one point, an incoming round must have hit their fuel stores, because suddenly it went up like the only way I could explain it, it looked like an A-bomb going off, okay? And so, things were looking pretty bad. Now, at one point, I had been out checking the fence line going around the site, and I had one guy with me who was a rough puff. Now, what that was a Vietnamese national regional forces guy, kind of like the State Guard.
Got it.
Okay. And I'll never forget this kid. He was a young kid. He had an old World War II carbine. Okay. And he had a Willie Pete, a white phosphorus grenade hanging off his belt. And we would go out, and we were sneaking and peeking through the damn weeds. And he looked over at that French building I had mentioned.
Yeah, the former orphanage.
Right. And he went, Trungsy, beaucoup VC, beaucoup. And what he was saying was, Sergeant, the bad guys, they're over there. Well, I figured as much. Now, we got back to one of the bunkers, and I got on the landline, because we had a line going back to the TOC, and I said, hey, my boy here says we got a shitload of probably NVA over there, and they're probably lining us up for a real pasting, okay? I'll volunteer to take a team over there and check it out, scope it out. They wouldn't let me. Okay, but that lieutenant that I mentioned earlier, the baby-faced lieutenant, came out, and I said, LT, we don't have any grenades out here. We don't have anything like that. I got my weapon, but, if they start coming in, I'd like something that went bang.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to have to check. He went back, came back out probably a half an hour later with an M16 with what looked like a stovepipe on the bottom of it. Now, I had never seen this before, but it was what today is called the 203 grenade launcher. And he had a bandolier of grenades, and he handed it to me, and I didn't even know how the damn thing worked.
Whoa.
So I had to fiddle with it to figure it out. Well, we didn't get hit that night, but the next morning, I finally went back about 3:30, 4 a.m., got into a bunker, and I crashed. I was just beat. Woke up about 6, and I scrounged up a sea ration because I was hungry. And I ate that, and then they started hitting us with more artillery. Well, it would come in a while, bang, 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 then it would stop. And what they were hoping is that when they stopped shooting, guys would go out, do an inspection or whatever, and then they'd start shooting again.
Sure.
Well, I had gone into our bunker, into the ASA bunker. Suddenly got the hiccups. And while I'm in there, it was miserable. It was humid, hot. I took off my flak jacket.
Oh.
And I'm sitting in there. I'm probably smoking a cigarette. And then I heard some shooting, not artillery, but gunfire. So I had there also, along with my rifle, an M3 grease gun. Now that's a .45 caliber
machine gun,
submachine gun that basically the Army came out with in 43 or 44 to replace the Tommy gun.
Yep.
Because the Tommy gun was very expensive to make.
Yeah.
But the grease gun they could make for like $20. Okay. But it worked. And at close range, it worked real good. And I went running outside, and suddenly it felt like somebody hit me with a ball bat.
No flat jacket.
No. And then immediately upon that happening, and my body was spinning, and I remember this, Peter, it's vividly imprinted in my head.
How can you not? How can you not?
There was an explosion behind me, an artillery round or mortar. And now I was flat down in the ground and stunned. Nothing hurt yet, but I was stunned. And I'm trying to move to see what will move. My right arm worked, and my legs were kind of iffy. And I looked up toward the fence line, and I saw two guys, NVA, coming through the wire. They were sappers. And one of them had an SKS rifle with a bayonet that looked like it was 4 feet long.
Oof.
And I thought to myself, oh my God, that's the guy that shot me, and he's coming in to finish the job.
Yeah.
And I'm groping around for my gun, and I can't find it. And to this day, I have no idea what happened. But I did have a .45 on. And I pulled that big automatic out, and I took a sight picture, and I opened up. Okay, now this is not something I talk about a lot. But I emptied a clip at them. They both went down. Now, I presume I got them. Okay, and this is not a bullshit war story. This is what happened. And with the gun going off, one of the guys in the bunker came running out, saw me there, grabbed hold of me and dragged me back into the bunker. Now, I had been out there for, in the hinterlands for a while. Mm-hmm. And I had lost a lot of weight. I was probably 175, 180 pounds. Okay, if that. But still, that was a lot for this guy to drag in. And they screamed for a medic, and he came down. And I told him, I said, I got hit in the shoulder. And I said, I don't know what the hell happened behind me. Well, half my ass was blown off. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he started packing me with gauze bandages and stuff. Yeah. And they called for an immediate evacuation.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how long it was. The first chopper came in, and they ran me out, threw me on board on a stretcher. And as it was taken off, something happened. I think, because it's not clear, but I think they got shot up. But he went back down. And they had to bring in another one. And that one I was able to get out of there. So they take me down to Fubai, take me into the hospital, and they're looking at me. They had a doctor come in. This priest came in, and he said, anything I can do for you, my son? And I said, well, Father, and I'm not Catholic, all right. Okay. I said, well, Father, I said, my mom's favorite Bible verse is the 23rd Psalm. Uh-huh. And he said, well, I'll go get a Protestant Bible. And I said, Father, it doesn't matter. He said, no. So he went off, came back. In the meantime, I am hurting like you would not believe. Yeah. And they wouldn't give me any morphine. Well, then 2 officers came in, a full bird colonel, and I think it was a lieutenant colonel. They wanted to know what happened. They wanted to debrief me, okay? Now I'm laying there bleeding like a stuck pig. Mm. And I'm thinking to myself privately the absurdity of this situation, okay? He said, well, what happened, son? Son, what happened? And I told him, I said, well, we were getting shelled. And then I heard this gunfire. I went running out of the bunker. 2 sappers in the wire. One of them shot me. And then I got blown up. And here I am. No. They wanted more, Peter. What kind of shell was it? And I looked up at him. True story. I said, sir, for all I know, it was a fucking A-bomb. They got huffy.
Well handled.
They left. And I figured I had leeway. I could get away with it.
No question about it.
So they take me down. Then they flew me down to Da Nang. Are you sure you want to hear this?
I do, and I'm quite convinced that my viewers and listeners do as well. Please continue.
Well, okay. Now we're going to get into the realm of spooky, okay? And when I told Kevin Randall and I are very good friends.
I was going to bring Kevin up because he was a guest some time back, and for the first time on the air, he talked extensively, certainly to a degree, about his experiences. I mean, an 18, 19-year-old combat helicopter pilot, and also, like your account, quite unforgettable. But I can only imagine some viewer exchanges over the years.
Well, they get me down there. Now I'm in these jungle fatigues, okay? Not the cleanest guy in the 95th Evac Hospital. Plus, I've got crusted blood all over me.
That happens when you're shot?
Yeah, well, they ran me down to the surgical room while a nurse is cutting off my uniform.
Yep.
Okay. I'm half in, half out. And they take me into surgery. And the doctor said, well, son, we're going to give you son. I love it. God damn it, my rank was sergeant. But, okay, son, we're going to give you some anesthesia. Well, that was not a good thing to do.
Oh.
Because that morning I had eaten.
Oh, right.
Okay. And Peter, they gave me the anesthesia. I went out like a light. Suddenly, I became conscious and I'm gagging and choking.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was the food. I was trying to vomit it.
Yeah.
And I died on the table. I died. Now, I'll tell you how I know that part in a minute. But suddenly, and this is going to sound bullshit, but Peter, this is what happened. And it'll never leave my mind. I was floating above the the operating table, and I could see these guys working on me, or working on whoever was laying there.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was so at peace and so content.
Yeah.
I couldn't, it was like, oh, well, this is okay. No problem here.
Yeah.
And suddenly I felt something like it pushed me back. And the next thing I knew, I'm waking up in ICU. And this nurse came in a couple of minutes later. Once again, one of those synchronicities. First Lieutenant Mary Miller was her name. And she looked at me and she said, Don, are you there? Uh-huh. I've been looking for you for a long time. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I said, huh? I'm from Altoona, Pennsylvania, too.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Mary Miller. And she had a rough time over there. I'm not going to get into that because that's her story.
Yeah.
But I went to see her after she was home, and when I got back, finally, I was in the hospital for close to 6 months.
Oh, my gosh.
So anyway, I was there. They had wired me up, my back. Okay, I still got shrapnel in it.
Yeah.
They had wired me up, and I couldn't eat. At one point, and I didn't even at the time know what it was. They were talking about giving me a colostomy.
Oh, Jesus.
But they didn't, okay? So I ended up going from there to Guam. They had to open me up again, redo everything.
Good Lord.
Now I had been in Okinawa before I went to Vietnam, and then I TDY'd there. Yep. Came back to Okinawa, and then I transferred. TDY, by the way, means temporary duty. Okay. And so I'm laying there, and this Navy doctor said, he said, I got good news for you, Don. What's that, sir? We're going to send you home. And I said, stateside. And I didn't want to go stateside. Okay, I did not want to go yet. And so immediately my little fertile brain goes to work. And I said, Doc, I said, I got a problem. He said, what's that? I said, if I go stateside now, I'll probably never get back. Yeah. I said, well, I got a pregnant girlfriend in Okinawa, which was a pure lie. Okay. I had a girlfriend there, but she wasn't pregnant, at least not by me. So anyway, he transferred me to Okinawa.
Oh my
Camp
God.
Cooey. And for the next month and a half, Peter, I was the worst soldier you ever saw in your life. Every night, I'd go AWOL out of the hospital downtown and raise some hell.
Yeah.
I figured somebody owed me for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And I wanted to get that crap out of my system.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was an interesting time.
And then you are sent home.
Yeah. Then I ended up back at, as a matter of fact, do you know where they sent me? Paoli, Pennsylvania, which is right next to Valley Forge.
Oh, my.
Okay, there was an Army hospital there then. Now I think it's a Bible college or something, or at least it was.
Yeah.
And I came home finally when I was discharged. I got a train out of Paoli, Now, there had just been a huge tropical storm that had hit Florida. Agnes, I think it was.
Okay.
And it ran all the way up the East Coast. And it washed the tracks out of Harrisburg.
Oh, my God.
It was so bad. So they had to all be repaired. And as a matter of fact, it delayed my going home for about a week. But when it was fixed, I went home and, that was on a 30-day medical leave. Then I had to go back and get discharged. Then I came home.
What was that like, coming home after this life-changing, to put it mildly, experience back with your family?
Lonely. I came home by myself. I got off the train. The only person there to see me were my mom and dad.
Oh, my gosh.
They took me home, and I was out of the Army. That was it.
How long, Don? Well, wrong question. There's no way that you return to what we'll laughingly call normal after an experience like that. How long before you decided that part of you needed to continue to be of service, in this case to your community rather than to the United States government, and that you decided to go into becoming a police officer?
Well, I became a cop about a year and a half later. How long did it take to get that business out of me?
Do you ever?
Never.
Yeah.
Okay. But about 12 years before, I guess you could say, I wasn't a raw nerve. Okay. It was, I never would have believed it until I experienced it. But
sure.
Something like that, you don't shake off right away.
Yeah.
You just don't. You don't. So, and I had three guys that I knew, four guys. One of them was my senior class president, Dave Delosier was his name. They were all killed in Vietnam. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I was in Okinawa, in the hospital there, they ran an article in the newspaper about me being wounded. Okay. Local soldier wounded in Vietnam. And I started getting all these get well cards.
Oh.
And I got a card, and I'll never forget this, from Dave Delosier's parents.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, this is after he was dead.
Yeah.
He was a Marine, had been on a helicopter that was shot down, and he was subsequently, he was killed. And when I got that, I'll never forget the emotion that ran through me. It was like, what the hell do I say to these people? Okay, what do I say? Their son is dead. I'm not. And boy, I'll tell you what, Peter, I ran into his dad, Delosier's dad, several years after that. And I went up to him, introduced myself, and I said, when I was hurt and I got a card from your wife and you,
yeah,
I said, I want you to know how much I appreciated that, but I didn't know what the hell to say. Okay. And, it's just one of those things you got to live with, Peter.
That's right. You become a police officer, and at a certain point, you are selected for, or you asked to be transferred to a SWAT team.
Yeah.
Remind us what those initials stand for.
Special Weapons and Tactics.
You certainly had a background in weapons and tactics at this point, and so you go into this area of police work. At a certain point, though, you were caught up in a horrendous situation where you are once again very badly injured. Can I ask you to discuss that a little bit with us?
Yeah, it was during an exercise, and it was an accident. Was not in the process of going after a bad guy. I got hit in the leg with a shotgun blast. And that was the end of the police career. Okay. Now, there's a little more to that story than I just gave. That happened in April of '86. But I was married then to a woman that I loved dearly. We had a child that in September of '84 apparently was bitten by a mosquito, and he developed it was the brain fever from encephalitis. Thank you. And he died within a week. And when that happened, okay, our world just fell apart.
Of course.
And we ended up splitting up. And often that happens when you lose a child.
That's right.
But right after that, okay, my dad died at 59.
Oh, no.
From cancer. I lost my leg, okay, and then a couple of years after that, when I was in California, my mother died of and this all happened in the space of about 6 years, okay. Gosh. And well, I'll tell you, I was kind of crazed there for a while.
Of course,
it was like, where's this bad luck coming from, But you either survive it because you tough it out or you don't. Yeah. And excuse me, I was luckily tough enough that I survived it.
You did. You also, at about this time, unless I'm mistaken, meet a remarkable woman who comes into your life.
Yes, 1988 we met. Vicky, my wife.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we decided that we've been together now almost 36 years.
Mazel tov.
Yes. And we got married in '93, right before Christmas. Matter of fact, we got married on my radio show, Peter. I don't know if you'll remember that.
I now remember it, but completely forgot. I think that makes you two the only two people in the world to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way to
go. UFOs tonight. Yes, we did.
Talking about UFOs, which is a subject that we do discuss here. And one of the reasons that you're my guest tonight, 1966, a flashback, you have a sighting. Tell us about that.
Well, it was in December. Now, back in those days, okay, I was in high school. The first day of deer season was like Christmas, Halloween, New Year's, and Easter, all wrapped up, okay? Everybody in that part of the country, for the most part, were deer hunters.
I was going to say that phenomenal film, The Deer Hunter, which a lot of us remember as, it introduced us, many people, to no names at the time like Meryl Streep, major film for De Niro, John Savage, but it captures that Pennsylvania culture, which same here.
Don't forget Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken, Jesus Christ, what a performance he turned in, and heartbreaking and unforgettable. But that culture...
All Vietnam vets, they were all deeply scarred by the war.
They sure were. And I recommend that film to anybody, kind of as an aside here, being a film maniac myself, but also now living in a rural part of America where deer hunting for many people is not just a rite of passage, and it's not sport hunting. People in this area who deer hunt, they get their deer and that helps feed their family, and that's no exaggeration. But yeah, it's a major time if that is part of your life.
Well, we were coming down off of, are you familiar with the Horseshoe Curve?
No.
Well, that was a engineering marvel, part of the railroad, the PRR, the Pennsylvania Railroad, that goes around. It's how you get out to Chicago if you're coming from the East Coast. Okay. It was built in the late 1840s. The only explosives they had, because they had to do a lot of exploding there with black powder.
Oh my.
Okay. They made this mountain so it would take the tracks. And it was still very wooded. From what I've heard, and I haven't been back to PA in quite a while, I believe they've done a lot of building up there. But at the time, it was like virgin forest. You wouldn't have known any difference if you could have time traveled to 1756. Okay.
Gosh, yeah.
So we had been hunting all day. We're skunked, didn't see a thing. We're coming down about 4:15 in the afternoon. And there was a guy in front of me, then me, and two of my buddies were behind. And as we're walking down, suddenly one of the guys in the rear started yelling. And the first thing I just flashed on, this moron saw a deer and he's going to scare it off. And I turn around, I'm going to chew his butt for a minute. And then I look up. He's staring at the sky, and flying over us at about, I'm guessing now because I don't know for sure, maybe 12,000 feet, are four brilliant lights in a diamond formation. And they're just going along leisurely.
Yeah.
Maybe not even 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And suddenly, the light in the rear shot straight up in the sky, like a rocket taking off.
Yeah.
Now the three that are in a V formation, like somebody kicked them in the tail end, they hit a burst of speed, and they're gone in a couple of seconds.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy hell, what was that?
Had you ever really given any serious thought to flying saucers, UFOs,
Yes.
that whole phenomenon?
Yes.
Tell us a little about that. When you were a kid?
Well, no. In 1964.
Okay.
It was a Friday night because we were all going to go to the drive-in. Okay. My dad, mother, myself, and my little sister.
Yeah.
We were going to go see something. It might have been, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it, might have been 55 Days at Peking with Charlton
good
Heston.
movie. Steve McQueen.
No, David Niven. Charlton Heston.
I'm thinking of that other Chinese imperialist story. Yeah.
Oh, the Sand Pebbles.
Yeah.
Movie freak.
Continue on.
And it was still light, kind of like now. Okay.
Yeah.
it hadn't gotten dark yet. And it had to be dark when
everybody saw this.
What?
The UFOs. Oh, I'm sorry. You keep going. I'm mixing the two stories. Continue on.
Yeah, all the guys that were with me, we all saw it.
Okay, but going back a little earlier.
Yeah, well, you said what got me interested.
Yes.
So we're getting ready to go to the drive-in. My dad was in the living room reading the newspaper. Suddenly he yelled at me, "Come here, come here." And I went in, and the Lonnie Zamora story.
Oh, for gosh sake.
The Sicaro UFO thing.
Very important.
It was in the newspaper.
Wow.
Okay, and he showed that to me. So, yeah, and I had been familiar with Frank Edwards. I was familiar with Donald Kehoe, the greats, the luminaries.
Yeah.
And, but I hadn't, as far as UFOs, that's interesting. Well, I was convinced, they're probably spaceships, okay? Next thing. So when this happened in 66, I go home and I tell my parents about it. And I'm positive, Peter, this is going to be on the news, the radio.
Exactly.
The TV, nothing. And of course,
Classic.
At that time, we were being invaded by UFOs. Pennsylvania, Ohio, New Jersey, New York, West Virginia.
Major. Yep.
And later, when I became friends with John Keel, we talked about that, okay? That whole area was the flap was huge, spectacular. So anyway, nothing, okay? Now, when I was in Vietnam, and I didn't know this until my father's funeral in 86, okay? According to my sister, something happened, and I kind of hesitate to even talk about it because it sounds so weird. But my dad had a little riding lawnmower tractor.
Sure.
Okay. And we had a pretty substantial piece of ground, and the grass would grow. He'd go out with the tractor and cut it. And he was out there, I guess this would have been late spring, early summer, cutting the yard, when suddenly he jumped off the tractor, running in the house, screaming for my mother. And she came out. And this is what my sister said. I didn't see it, but this is what she told me at his funeral. Above the house, several hundred feet, was this square box flying like a refrigerator with antenna hanging off of it. Just flying around like whatever, okay? And when I heard that, I said, my God, how could you not have told me about this before? I forgot about it. You forgot about it? How could you forget about it?
We know this dynamic so well.
That is something with UFOs.
Yeah.
That's a truism. The mind just shuts it out.
That's right. That's right. Don, you meet Vicky, you fall in love, you get married, but what was it that first connected you to that you both realized that you had this mutual interest?
That's how I met her.
Of course.
Okay. At that time, I had been for 1 year only, and then I couldn't get away from it fast enough. I had been a state section director for MUFON until I had the great displeasure of meeting Walt Andrus, and I'll tell you that story. But I was starting to write quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, after I was injured.
Yes.
And I fancied myself as another career as a writer. And the guy that was the state director for MUFON was a fellow by the name of Don Mason. Now, this is in the state of Idaho. I was living in Idaho.
Oh, uh-huh.
And Don Mason was a go-getter, okay? And he was really dedicated to getting the word out. And later, in a way, he put me on the track of something you may recall that I did for over 3 years, chasing down human mutilations.
Oh, yeah. A very uncomfortable subject in the research world. Boy, oh boy. Yep.
But not to get sidetracked. So he pointed me, he said, there's a magazine in California, in LA, called California UFO. At that time, that was the title. And he said, you ought to try to see if they would be interested in publishing what you're writing.
You bet.
So I got the phone number and I called them up, and Vicki answered the phone. And initially we had an ongoing telephone relationship. Okay. Until I flew down to meet her. And that's another whole story, but we clicked. Okay, Peter, we clicked.
You sure did. And at a certain point, this happened.
Yes.
Issue number 1, a forum on extraordinary theories and phenomena. And let me tell you all, my experience when I was first starting to make my name was far and away, this publication was the hands down best monthly general UFO publication in the United States of America. And under Vicki and Don's leadership, it just got better and better. And I'll never forget how proud I was when my first of quite a number of articles was accepted and run in the magazine. It was about then that your relationship and mine started to develop. Also, in the 80s, Don, as I mentioned in your introduction, of course, we were still living in, decade after decade, an era of UFO ridicule. It was hardwired into the Western mindset that if you took this phenomena seriously, you were deluded, you were a mystic, you were a cult member, you were a hoaxer, you thought this was a way you could make money or become famous. All these things really obsessed me for a while and set me off on a track of research on the origins of UFO ridicule, which I actually gave as a paper last month at UFO conference.
I'd be very interested in reading that, Peter.
I'll send you a copy. I'm very proud of what it came down to, and I'm continuing to refine it. I'll send it to you at the end of the summer when I have it just the way that I want it, because I'm going to be giving another version of it next month.
Don't forget.
No, if not, I know you'll remind me. And to put it mildly, but you are one of the first people in our field, not just to start appearing on the media, to make a case for why it needed to be taken seriously, but to do it in a way that I found myself naturally falling into. And I think it was one of the reasons, one other level of respect that I had for you, you knew how to appear professional. I mean, you remember back in the day, so many of our colleagues, wonderful guy, well, it's overwhelmingly middle-aged white guys, like a lot of other things in the world, but professional, wonderful geeks as a rule, who my caricature in my mind, but it was true in so many respects, unconscious dressers. And I'm not an elitist, and I hardly am a fashion plate, but pocket protectors, a giant hunkin' flying saucer in your lapel, a sports jacket that should have been burned in 1955, polyester, Brill cream. You always looked sharp. I remember thinking at one point, if I want to do this seriously, I need to expect to be attacked and to thin out that profile as much as possible. What should I look like? I thought.
Well, you see, the thing was, I've got an aspect to my personality, and I'm sure you know this, that's very, shall we say, feisty.
Let's say.
And I wouldn't brook any horse shit from any skeptic. As a matter of fact, one of the infamous situations that happened to me was on Larry King Live with Jim Oberg. Okay. I ate his lunch that night. All right. I ate his lunch.
Mm.
And it all started when I knew his background. Well, you see, I was a cop.
Some people don't know who Jim Oberg is. He's an arch debunker, and that's very different than a skeptic. He's a
PhD. He's a PhD.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Oberg.
He had been an Air Force nuclear officer.
Good credential.
Okay? Now, what did that mean? Well, like myself, I had a top secret security clearance with a crypto access when I was active duty. Same with Oberg.
Mm.
Now, he and I met on the STS-48 case. You see, originally, I had a relationship with Larry King's producer. At the time, a guy by the name of Tom Farmer. And I had been on King probably a total of 6 times. All right. He used to bring me back all the time until that show. And on that particular show, I decided I've got this incredible story where obviously something was shooting at those unknown bogeys above Australia and New Zealand. And I laid out the whole litany of what had happened. Oberg was there to strictly poo-poo the whole thing. It was frozen urine in space. Yeah, but Jim, they hadn't had the water dump yet. The water dump happened after this, okay? So I asked him, I said, look, let me ask you this. You're a contract scientist, and I'm paraphrasing, you're a contract scientist with NASA. So if you knew something funky happened up there, would your security clearance prevent you from talking about it? And he went off on me.
Oh, how dare you put me on the spot.
Exactly. Well, at least I'm not here to sell magazines. That was his comeback. Well, at the end of that show, Larry King made a big gaffe. He said at the very end of the show, and I've got the recording. Hell, I should have sent it to you. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Don Ecker Live.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. And later, I got a call from Farmer, and King was livid at me because he thought I stole his show. He was an egomaniacal shit. Okay, Larry was. And I wasn't trying to do that, but I had seen too many times UFO people came on these shows and got steamrolled. And I told Vicky and I told my friend Rich Saraday, who was with me when we went down to CNN, they're not going to do that to me. I'm not going to be steamrolled because I was willing to fight. And believe me, I fought with all the skeptics. Joe Nickel, And Peter, Jim Oberg, and God, I had a whole litany of these guys that I've clashed with, and they started calling me, and it's in a book. Okay, Don Ecker, the bulldog of ufology.
That works for me. And believe it or not, Don, we are into our last 4 minutes, so I'm going to speed us along here a little bit with some of stills. Some of these shows folks aren't even aware of anymore, but they made an important mark in the 80s and 90s. And one of the things I admired about you, too, although the lines were not as harshly drawn as they are now, you appeared on whatever the show was, whatever the network was affiliated with. Fox was certainly more conservative, MSN more progressive, but you crossed those lines regularly, and I really have to hand it to you for that. Got Oberg again. What was Pat Buchanan about on UFOs?
Oh, that's a great story. Okay.
Make it short.
Yeah, make it short. That was my first appearance on Larry King Live.
Oh, boy.
And that took place in, I think it was October of '89, talking about the Voronezh USSR UFO landing.
Got very deeply involved in.
And there I was. They called up the magazine. I went down. I thought King was going to be there. No, Pat Buchanan. And he introduced me. Well, at the very end of that show, I told him and the moron that they had there to appear against me, okay, that, Pat, you got to remember that in General Douglas MacArthur's last appearance at West Point, okay, in 1962, he told the cadets to be aware that at some point they might be facing the evil
planetary,
planetary thing. And Buchanan went nuts. Wait a minute. I've got that speech on my wall at home. I said, well, Pat, I brought it with me and I had it. And I was prepared to read it. And you know what? Oh, we're out of time. That was the end of that. Dennis Stacy. Dennis Stacy, who was the editor.
I haven't heard in years. Oh, boy.
Castigated me in the next MUFON journal until he was snowed under by MUFON members sending him that speech.
Yeah.
And you know what? That SOB never apologized.
Not uncommon with some folks with big egos and a byline. Zachariah Sitchin, somebody who I was honored to be friends with and would occasionally have lunch with in New York, an extraordinary mind. Ingo Swann, who is kind of the godfather of remote viewing.
Yes.
How did you get to meet Ingo?
Ingo came down to hear me give a talk at Bordentown, New Jersey.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Pat Marcatilio's conference. Remember him well.
Right. And he and I became very good friends.
And the great Colonel
Gordon Cooper.
Yeah. Don, our time has gone much too fast. I want to thank you in particular for being just so with us on this and coming from the heart and talking about things that I know have not been easy, comfortable, but I'm honored to be your friend. We agree to disagree on certain things, and who the hell cares? Always a pleasure, my friend. Please send my love to Vicky, and we will be in touch, and I will have that paper to you toward the end of the summer.
Excellent. Peter, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
Next week, for change of pace, we're going to have as my guest Scotty Roberts, a distinguished Egyptologist. If you've enjoyed the show, please tell your friends. We'll see you next week, same time, same station. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other.